ألا في الفتنة سقطوا. Lo, they have fallen into fitna or dissension, and indeed hell surrounds the unbelievers. And this is a very strong statement, or a very strong verse to quote when you're speaking to Muslims. When she says that hell surrounds the kafirin, the disbelievers, who is she speaking to here? She's speaking to Muslims. But she's indirectly describing them as what? Disbelievers. It is not easy what they have done to Fatima and to Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. The corruption that we find today in the Muslim world, the weaknesses and the weakening of the Muslim ummah, the fractures in its unity, all types of damages that have been happening in history, all are a result of that very day, which they violated the most important command, and that is to allow the commander of the faithful to rule and to give him and to respect the allegiance that they had given him on the day of Ghadir. The painful loss of Lady Fatima was not just in the fact that Fadak was usurped. Fadak is not very important to Fatima as it is a land. But she wanted to make sure that she records in history that these people who claim to be the companions of Rasulullah and the caliphs and the leaders, the first thing they have done is they have usurped, after the Khilafah, usurped the land of Fadak. If somebody is not convinced later on in history that Khilafah was usurped, at least they know that Fadak was usurped. And if Fadak was usurped, that means the usurper, who's the caliph at that point, does not qualify to be a caliph, does not qualify to lead. A person who confiscates the rights of others does not have the right to be a just ruler. And she made it very clear that Fadak belongs to her, either by ownership, because she owned it during the time of Rasulullah as it was gifted to her. And when the Khalifa or the so-called Khalifa said to her, bring me evidence that this is yours, she brought him witnesses and he rejected them. He said, one of the witnesses is your husband. And of course your husband wants you to win the case because he's going to eat piece of the pie. Is this what you think of Ali ibn Abi Talib and Fatima? That they're looking for a pie to eat from and that they're greedy about worldly things? How dare you even think that of Ali and Fatima, the house that Allah has purified? Then when she says, okay, assume that this is not mine and it belonged to my father. I am his only daughter right now. I inherit this land. And their answer was, oh, inheritance. Although it's mentioned in the Quran, but prophets are an exemption, or they are an exception to this rule. How are they an exception? In which verse? Said, no, not in the verses. Rasulullah had secretly told Abu Bakr that we the prophets are not inherited. Whatever we leave goes to sadaqah. Really? Rasulullah said this to Abu Bakr, and he never said this to the gate of the city of knowledge, Ali ibn Abi Talib. He did not mention it to Fatima. He did not mention it to any of the Muslims. Was Rasulullah trying to cause problems by giving the secret only to Abu Bakr? Well, this is such an important hadith that Rasulullah should have delivered to the public. Why only between him and Abu Bakr? SubhanAllah, the one who's making the claim to confiscate the land right away comes out with a hadith that no one other than him recognizes. Hence you understand when she says liars. Because they have fabricated and attributed hadith that are not true to Rasulullah. And they went farther than that. They banned the recording of the sunnah of Rasulullah. And they said, if we ever find something like that, we'll take it and burn it. They don't want the jewels that Rasulullah had disseminated and has talked about with respect to the Ahlul Bayt and with respect to the other matters that are important in Islam to be prevalent among the community. They wanted to basically corner this household of Ali and Fatima and to isolate them, to remove them from all of the positions that were given to them by Rasulullah in any way, shape or form, at any expense. Lady Fatima kept that pain in her. The pain that was the most hurtful to Sayyidah Fatima, more than everything that happened, even more than the attack on her house and the attack on her between the door and the wall and the rest of the things that they have done, is the fact that these people have diverted the compass of the ummah and have led the journey and the trajectory of inhiraf, of deviance, for a very long time. This very inhiraf is going to lead to the killing of Ali ibn Abi Talib. How did the killing of Ali ibn Abi Talib even happen? Because as soon as they isolated him, as soon as they removed him from his position and they took the position of Khilafah, they gave it to Umar, and after Umar to Uthman, and Umar appointed Muawiyah, and Uthman kept Muawiyah. And as soon as Uthman was killed by the same Sahaba or some of the companions, and this shows you how all the companions are perfect people, that some of them would kill others. So they killed Uthman, and after the killing of Uthman, people came to Ali ibn Abi Talib. He had no other option but to accept to lead them. And as soon as he has done this, they had already set him up with Muawiyah, who says, I will not give you allegiance until you kill the killers of Uthman. They used that as a reason to justify no allegiance. And then all of a sudden, Aisha rises and takes Talha and Zubayr, and they go to Basra to overthrow the government of Ali ibn Abi Talib, where now he has to go all the way to Basra to save the state, because the person who's in charge of the United States of Islam during that time, the person who is at the head is responsible and answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if any of his territories is attacked and he doesn't do anything. It's not like Ali ibn Abi Talib would say, you know what, although I'm the leader, the caliph, but yalla, let Aisha go and do whatever she wants in Basra. Let her destroy it and kill the governor. And you can't do that. No government is going to allow this. Right away, he took his army and they went to Basra. And they warned them very much, but they insisted on fighting. And because of that fight, many thousands of Muslims were killed. Until Ali alayhi salam won the war against Aisha. He comes back, and now Muawiyah is waging a war from Siffin, at Siffin. After that war, a group that emerges from the army of Ali that are called the Khawarij. And these very Khawarij, with a conspiring and plotting with Muawiyah, were able to kill the commander of the faithful in Masjid al-Kufa. And later on, kill his son by the poison of Muawiyah. And later on, paved the way for Yazid. And Yazid did what he has done. The atrocity of Ashura. You see how the chain of events all resulted from that very day when they chose to isolate and remove Ali ibn Abi Talib from the position of Imam. So when we're talking about the inhiraf and diversion, we're not just talking about a position of leadership that was taken that does not have any effect on the ummah. It has serious repercussions. It led to the ghaibah of the 12th Imam. All these serious repercussions and all this loss and deviance that the Muslims have suffered from and experienced is a result of that day. Hence that left a lot of pain in the heart of Lady Fatima. And when she died, prior to her death, when she was on deathbed, she gave her wasiyah to Amir al-Mu'mineen and said to him, I don't want you to bury me during the day. I want you to bury me in the night. And I want you to hide my grave. And I don't want those who have oppressed me to attend my funeral. To record this grievance until the day that our Imam reappears. One of the questions that every Muslim should ask, the only daughter of the Prophet that was left after his death, and I say only, I don't mean that she was the only, but after his death, because there is an opinion that there were 3 others, but that died before the demise of Rasulullah. But the only daughter that is left after him, which he has praised and considered Sayyidatun Nisa al-Alameen, question, very simple question, where is her grave? She was an ordinary person, she was a nobody, so we don't care about her grave. This was the princess of Islam, where is her grave? See the wisdom of why Fatima insisted to keep her grave hidden. So that every Muslim generation that comes asks this question, and by asking the question it leads them to other questions so that they can find the truth through Fatima. يَرْضَى اللَّهُ لِرِضَاهَا وَيَغْضَبُ لِغَضَبِهَا. Allah is angered when she's angered and pleased when she is pleased. This is Fatima. Fatima dies. Ali ibn Abi Talib is heartbroken. Hassan and Hussein, Zainab, Kulthum, the close companions, they go out at night, they bury her. And then Ali ibn Abi Talib sits and he has his special and private moment on the grave of Fatima. He's sitting there and then he directs his face to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, to the qabr of Rasulullah, which was not too far. And according to Nahjul Balagha, Ali alayhi salam says, O Prophet of Allah, peace be upon you from me, and from your daughter who has come to you, and who has hastened to meet you. O Prophet of Allah, my patience about your chosen daughter has been exhausted, and my power of endurance has weakened, except that I have ground of consolation in having endured the great hardship and heart-rending event of your separation. I laid you down in your grave when your last breath had passed, when your head was between my neck and chest. Verily we are Allah, verily we are all for Allah, and verily unto Him we shall return. Now the trust has been returned, and what had been given has been taken back. As to my grief, it knows no bounds, and as to my nights, they will remain sleepless till Allah chooses for me the house in which you are now residing. Then he recites this poetry, نفسي على يا زفراتها محبوسة يا ليتها خرجت مع الزفرات لا خير بعدك في الحياة وإنما أبكي مخافة أن تطول حياتي. Amir al-Mu'mineen, it's time for you to go home. Zainab is alone in the house. She wants someone to console her. Ali ibn Abi Talib rushes back to the house. I imagine that he finds in front of him Zainab sitting in the room of her mother, crying, Mama Fatima, where are you? How could I sleep the night without you? You are the one who made sure I went to sleep. Who will I resort to after you, O Mother Fatima? Then he turns and finds Hassan and Hussein. I imagine they would be in the mihrab of their mother, crying, consoling one another. لَقَدْ مَاتَتْ أُمُّنَا فَاطِمَةً. Verily our mother Fatima has left us, she has died. إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ راجعون. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. Ya Allah, Allah, we ask you by the love of Fatima, her father, her husband, her children, to grant us the shafa'ah of Fatima on the day in which we will meet you, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, we ask you to grant our Imam, the 12th Imam, a hastened reappearance, and grant us deliverance through his reappearance. Ya Allah, make us among his sincere and devout assistants. Oh Allah, forgive our sins. Oh Allah, grant us the best of tawfiq to be of the best of your servants. Oh Allah, end the suffering sufferings of all those who are oppressed, especially our brethren in Palestine. O Allah, grant them victory over their enemies. Ya Allah, O Allah, send the thawab of this majlis along with Surah Al-Fatiha and 3 times Surah Al-Ikhlas to all mu'mineen and mu'minat, all of the marhumin of those who are present, and all of the martyrs and shuhada bi Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. We have 7 minutes for Q&A if you guys have any questions. Sister's side, no questions? Does Zainab have a question? She's raising her hand. Okay. No, okay. Anyone here have a question? Okay. All right. Okay, inshallah. So let's go ahead, Sayyidina. Sayyid Muhammad, Jawad. Fadak, the land of Fadak. Yeah. Yes.
So what is the situation in the land of Fadak right now?
Well, the land of Fadak is now huge. I mean, there's so much things are built on that land. Some of the hotels, some of the mazara, and so much. Because Fadak is a very large portion of area outside of Medina. Right now, it's being used by the government of Hijaz, and they're doing all kinds of business there. It's basically, they consider it to be their territory, but when our beloved Imam returns, of course, he will take all that back to give it to the children of Fatima. Obviously, him, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, is the inheritor of Fatima at that moment. And the rest of the grievances that were taken and the rest of the things that were usurped will come back, of course. But there's nothing that people can do now in the time of Ghaiba, as this ard is considered usurped.
Okay. And is it mostly like Shia populated or
No. There's no. I don't think there's any Shia in Fadak. It's
interesting.
Okay. Yeah. It's. I imagine it to be more hotels, buildings, because they started to build a lot and invest in the areas outside. Those who have went to Hajj and went to Fadak or went to Umrah and went to that land or even asked about it, perhaps would know what is there right now. Okay. Again, I imagine a lot of buildings and hotels in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Ahsantum. So since you're a Sayyid, when you go there, tell them I have to book for free. This is my grandmother's land.
Right.
Yeah. They shouldn't charge you. Yes, Sayyid Maitham. Go ahead, Brother Maitham.
Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid.
Assalamu rahmatullah.
Sayyid, in what situations can we take from the akhlaq of the Fadak story, and in what situations are we not allowed to? So, for example, somebody takes your land or your possession right now in today's world. If we take the story of Fadak, Bibi Fatima alayhi salam held it against them.
You ask for your right. You have all the right to ask and stand in front of the usurper, especially if what they have usurped is something that they have done because of the Khilafah itself. These people did not just take Fadak like that. They were thinking satanically. They said, Fadak has a lot of revenue. Ali ibn Abi Talib right now is going to be angry with us for taking the leadership. So they're thinking politics. They're thinking that Ali ibn Abi Talib, to oppose us and to win it back, he's going to need money. And Fatima is not going to, let him down. She'll give him everything like her mother Khadija gave to her father, to her husband and the father of Fatima, Rasulullah. So the best thing to do is keep this opposition with no money. How do we do that? We usurp the main source of income, which was Fadak at that time. So Fatima did not just want Fadak for personal reasons. No, she wanted to make sure to record in history that these people are Zalimeen. Now for us, whenever something is usurped from us, we have all the right to stand against the Zalim and the oppressor and ask for it back. But when we find, for example, that this is going to cost us more than that, such as bloodshed, then we learn from Fatima that we don't go that far. When she did it peacefully, they didn't give her anything. Did she resort to war and tell Ali ibn Abi Talib, let's go and fight to get it back? No. They kept it. Why? Because they are very keen on not having any bloodshed. They'd rather lose Fadak and lose all the worldly matters for the sake of preserving the unity of the Ummah and for the sake of preserving the blood of the Muslimin. So that's one thing that we learn from Fadak, is that you fight for your rights, but in a peaceful way, and when you don't get it, you should not take it to the level where blood is shed and where people are being killed innocently. Because they could have taken it to a war, but what would happen in that war is that Abu Bakr would hire many people from his soldiers to come and fight, and Ali alayhi salam and his companions might lose their lives, all to what? For a piece of land. They don't think with that, that mindset. So they left it. Ahsantu. Alrighty. Sisters, any questions from your side? Brother, yes, go ahead. Ameen, bye. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I have a question about the fight to get back the Fadak that you mentioned. Is if Imam Ali had enough supporters, we always people mention that Imam Ali was the most Mazlum Imam in the history of Islam.
Correct.
And then if he had enough supporters, I don't know.
According to a hadith, he said, if I had 40 loyal supporters, I would have regained not Fadak, the whole Khilafah, and the government would come back under him. Fadak would automatically come back.
Okay.
So he needed 40 loyal. And he told his people when they came that we will support you. Because some people say we will support you just by words. He says, if you truly want to support me, the very famous hadith, he says, all of you go shave your head bald and come to me tomorrow. Tomorrow comes 4, and the 5th came a little bit late. 5 people came. Not even 40. 5, just 5. So he says, okay, I have a hujjah before Allah. I don't have ansar, what do I do? My duty at this point is to not do anything. Because it would be a losing battle. He needed at least 40 strong, courageous men to assist him to regain. The army wasn't so big during that time on the other side. The situation wasn't as complicated in terms of regaining power. They just recently took power. So 40 strong men with Ali ibn Abi Talib can defeat 400. Even 4,000 of their people. Right? The problem was, these 40 people were not even ready to sacrifice and to be with Ali ibn Abi Talib. 4 or 5 people. So that led to him being, I don't want to say silent, but in terms of war, he couldn't do anything. And he remained until the rest of the story that you know.
Thank you.
Ahsantum, thank you.
One last question.
Sure.
So, how come when Imam Ali came in power later on, they didn't, get Fadak back?
Very good. So the first thing that we have to keep in mind, you have to have a list of priorities. If Ali ibn Abi Talib now takes position, there's so much corruption in the past 25 years that now he has to fix. Now even before fixing any corruption, right away, war in Basra. War coming from Sham. Khawarij. Now this is a very hectic, busy time for the Imam, that regaining the land of Fadak is not on the first of priorities. He was only there for 4 years. And in these 4 years, he's occupied with war after war. So of course he's going to work on establishing peace first, before focusing on the land that belonged to his wife Fatima and his children. History would say that Ali ibn Abi Talib is selfish if he left all of this and focused on just regaining the land that was usurped by. Imagine right now there's a war going on in Gaza, for instance, and somebody, instead of trying to help the people there and save them, they have a battle with someone about regaining a land that was usurped. What would you say about that someone? You would say, this person, at least they're not prioritizing. Is it time for regaining something like that? And Ali wants to send a message, salamullahi alayhi, that we are not seeking khilafah because we want to regain this land or that land. That's the last of our priorities. We want to ensure and restore justice. And let us restore the justice that has been violated for others before we do for ourselves. This is the lesson, and this is the example that Ali ibn Abi Talib demonstrated. And all the A'immah afterward, of course, did not have power to do so, but they knew that there is no point in taking Fadak. Why? Because even if he restored Fadak, what will happen after the Abbasids take over? They're going to take it back. So Fadak is going to be taken regardless. So who do we leave it to? We leave it till the riser who will come before the end of time, and he will restore all the justices, including the usurped land of Fadak. And there's other wisdoms, perhaps Amir al-Mu'mineen, of course, knows exactly what he's doing with this respect. These are possible wisdoms and possible explanations as to why he, salamullahi alayhi, chose not to go and restore Fadak when he had the power to do so. Ahsantum. Yes, brother.
You mentioned that Imam alayhi salam, when he comes back, he will also regain. Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, when he comes back, he will regain Fadak, right? So do we know how he will regain Fadak? Because you mentioned also it's not, we shouldn't get something basis on bloodshed, then we would avoid it.
No, so what would happen is when the Imam comes back and he would establish his government in the world, once he's fully established, everything is under his authority. It's like you becoming the king of a specific area. No one's going to say, well, how is he going to regain that house that was taken? The fact that you're a king now, everything is under your call. You just make the call. So everything is restored to its position because of that gaining of victory that Allah will support him in. So he would not need to kill the people who are there and cause bloodshed to regain it. It will automatically come back to him because he will take dominance over the entire earth at that time. يَرِثَ الْأَرْضَ وَمَنْ عَلَيْهَا, will inherit the entire land. All of earth would be under the tip of his fingers or under his control. أحسنتم. والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين من الأولين والآخرين، السلام على الحسن المجتبى وعلى الحسين الشهيد بكربلاء، السلام على التسعة المعصومين علي السجاد ومحمد الباقر وجعفر الصادق وموسى الكاظم وعلي الرضا ومحمد الجواد وعلي الهادي والحسن العسكري والحجة الخلف القائم المهدي. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليهم صلاة كثيرة دائمة.